Let's jump in. Today's webinar is all about how to set up a content marketing engine in the age of AI. And, obviously a lot has changed in the last year. Classic content marketing has really had to have a look at itself. And there are certainly some new best practices and some new ways that we want to approach our content marketing engine. And so today, I'll talk through prerequisites and goals of building an effective content marketing engine, specifically for technical audiences, but it works for any kind of audience, but I'll focus my examples on technical audiences because that's what we do here at Draft.dev. I'm going to talk through the tech stack, the strategy, tried and trusted frameworks that help you reverse engineer your content production and also your publishing plan. And I'll address specific challenges for creating technical content in the AI era, where more and more these AI systems, ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity, they increasingly mediate the relationship between the content we publish and our audience. So just quickly, why do I feel qualified to talk about this? My background is in advertising and marketing, and in 2012, I co-founded a tech startup called CodeJip. We scaled it to a few millions in annual recurring revenue and sold it in 2018. And at that point, my marketing team was 3 people, and we drove over 1 million unique visitors per year to our blog, and we generated around 1,500 marketing leads per month from our inbound content marketing engine. After that, I consulted for big and small tech companies, some with triple-digit revenue, like triple-digit millions in revenue, I should say, and others just getting started. And over the course of these years, the resulting systems and frameworks are what I'm presenting today. So this works for small companies just getting started, but it also works for companies that already generated over $100 million in revenue. So what are we talking about today? So first of all, we're going to talk about content marketing needs to drive revenue, right? We have a responsibility to the business to provide predictable output of content, and we want to bring our leads from awareness to consideration to purchasing decision. And it's all great and good to publish content, but the end goal is obviously to create business revenue, cash in the bank, right? And so we owe it to the business and to ourselves to understand how we impact bottom line revenue. And, we're going to look at analytics and we're going to look at content calendars and stuff like that. But really, this doesn't have to be crazy, overly complicated. We're just going to look at a few simple ways that we can measure and analyze what we're doing and then learn from what we're looking at and improve and build towards even better and more efficient content output. So then we're going to talk about content management systems. And you might say, well, what did I join here? This is very basic. But no, this is like, I'm only giving a quick overview here. Especially in the age of AI, a good content management system is really important because it's essential that non-technical people on your team, like marketers probably, can create, preview, and publish and schedule content without friction, right? This is really important. You cannot rely on somebody like a front-end engineer in your company to help you get stuff out. This is too much friction, and I assume you're not in a position where you have a dedicated front-end engineer on your marketing team. So we're going to talk about what these content marketing systems need to allow you to do, like adhering to best practices in terms of how we publish content, etc. And again, it's all about reducing friction. We have content that we could publish. The worst thing is we cannot publish this because we're technically limited, and it's just not possible to deploy our content to production. Then we're going to talk about setting up analytics. As mentioned, a lot has happened in the last year with AI, right? Traffic from AI engines, like how much traffic did we get from ChatGPT? How many AI overview citations do we have? How many brand mentions do we have in AI engines, right? So we're going to talk about the traditional metrics, but we're also going to talk about the metrics that you need in the AI era. And then we're going to talk about collecting leads in your database. And this is very close to my heart, right? It's all about turning unknown traffic, right? We publish content, we generate more and more traffic on our website, on our blog. This is just traffic, right? But we want to build a relationship and provide value over time and earn trust of our technical audience. That means we need to turn this traffic into known names and start engaging meaningfully with them and providing value. And leads in this sense can mean, for example, product signups if you're in a product-led growth motion, but it can also mean leads, and then we turn them into marketing leads, and from marketing leads into sales qualified leads that our sales organization works. It could also mean just the practitioner, the software developer, submitting a form and then getting access to a sandbox or dev environment to test your solution, right? So I'm going to walk you through a few options that we usually recommend for collecting leads in a database. And really, you can do this on a very low budget. So if you're only starting, right, and I don't know, your manager is not providing you with any budget, there's no excuse to not capture leads, right? You don't need HubSpot from the get-go. You don't need Salesforce for the get-go. There's enough solutions with free plans to help you get started, prove that this is working. And once you can prove to business leadership that this is working, then you get budget and then you can go on from there. Then we're going to talk about setting up retargeting audiences. This is very exciting. You can do a lot of creative things here. And these creative things also help us respect our audience and not spam them, but at the same time create a lot of brand awareness for very cheap. Because retargeting ads basically allow us to serve ad impressions to an audience that has previously engaged with our content. And last but not least, I'm going to talk about content calendars. Just like with the CMS, you might think like, man, this is quite basic, but no. This is also very dear to my heart. A content calendar is an extremely simple tool, but extremely powerful because it allows for predictability. And once you have predictability, you can act and not react. And we can, plan in the future. Like today, I know what gets published on the blog in 2 months, right? And so there's no stress, there's no gung-ho shoot. What are we doing now? No, everything is set up. The thing is scheduled. We know the URL. The social media posts for the blog posts are scheduled, etc. Right? So really, it allows us to act and not react, and it allows us to report and forecast to business leadership what has happened and what will happen. Even forecast how many leads we will get based on how much new content we produce. More on that in a second. So yeah, before we dive in, I just want to make clear, when I talk about here publishing content, I talk about text-based content published on a blog. That's our base content asset. Sure, there's other content marketing, right? There's like, you could have video tutorials on YouTube, you could have podcast episodes. But for the sake of this presentation, I'm talking about blog posts because they're a great base asset that you can create a lot of other things from. You can repurpose blog posts into social media posts. You can create all kinds of things from blog posts, even podcast episodes from blog posts, right? Gated assets, PDFs, where you combine multiple blog posts. So just be aware when I just casually say, hey, we're publishing some content. In my head, I'm talking about we're publishing some blog posts on our blog. Okay, let's jump in. So yes, it's really important. Content marketing needs to drive revenue, right? And we've seen this a lot with clients and potential clients. Most of our clients know they should do content marketing, especially with a technical audience, right? Software developers are inherently hard to market to. They have a big BS sensor, and it's really important to earn their trust and earn their respect. So most of the companies that have a product that sells to software engineers or organizations with a lot of software engineers to make, for example, their software engineers more efficient and more productive, they know they should do content marketing, but really they struggle to turn it into a consistent, predictable growth channel. And it's more like, they're building something and then inspiration strikes, right? I don't know, you have a software developer in your company and they're working on a new feature, and they really enjoy work on it, and they write about it. Great. The marketing team kind of gets a freebie. Inspiration strikes for the software developer. He or she wants to publish something. We help them publish it. And then 5 months, there's nothing. Right? And so That's not what we are building here. We're building an engine that's chugging along and things are predictable and we always know what's happening and there's consistency, right? So we want to follow a strategic plan, stay disciplined, and carry out clearly defined processes. And so, really, in my opinion, marketers who fail to succeed at content marketing usually either lack the processes and systems or they lack the discipline and accountability to carry out these processes consistently. And today, I'm going to walk you through a setup that allows you to adhere to both of these things very well, that you won't lose discipline and that you have clearly defined processes and systems in place that make it easy and do not have a lot of friction to work on this stuff. And so working in a structured way on this is always was important, right? But it's even more important nowadays because we see like technical content especially has seen a big drop in click-through rates due to AI overviews and AI engines in general, right? And so we really want to have a structured approach that helps us define what we work on, when we and how we publish it, and do that over a consistent period of time, over a long period of time, right? And execute well. So there's a clear need to adapt for the AI area. Okay, so what's our responsibility here, right? As I have mentioned, we want to be proactive. We want to have predictability. We want to have measurable results, right? And so really content marketing is not an art. It's a science. You can be creative within it, but really it takes robust systems, processes, and discipline to execute. And if we stay within these systems, we will do a good job. Okay, so let's jump into content management systems. So really the important thing here is we measure how many pieces we can publish per month, right? And then it's really important that your team can do this without the help of a technical resource. And what I want to stress here is if you're just getting started, right? Or if you have been, publishing blog posts, but it was more of the inspiration strikes kind of type, right? Really, when you start doing this seriously in a structured way, for quite a while, it's more important to establish a regular pulse of publishing than to publish the perfect article, right? So it's more important to send a signal like, hey, every 2 weeks, for example, there's something coming out, rather than having like, I don't know, one article per quarter and that's perfect, right? And it's like, no, really, it's chef's kiss. It's so good, but nobody will see it and the search engines don't really pick it up because it's like there's no pulse there. So really, like we've seen clients ask us, for example, they have internal resources, they have 2 different engineers and both of them want to write on something. And then they don't publish it because they want to align the voice and tone of these 2 pieces because obviously these 2 different writers have different tone of voice. And so they overthink, the client overthinks, right? And says, oh, we need to align the tone and voice. And they want us to look over it and have 5 revision rounds. No, just get it out there, right? Get it out there. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be always the perfect tone of voice. We can do this way later. At the beginning, it's about establishing a pulse, predictability for the search engines and AI engines, but also for readers, right? They can say, oh, there's always something happening here. And don't try to be overly perfect. Of course, don't do anything that's detrimental to your brand, right? Let's say you would have like a blog post that's published and then, your CEO decides the company is going to pivot and do a different product like offering now. Don't publish the thing that now doesn't work anymore. But what I'm talking about is much more like, if you're unsure if this is really, to you it reads basic, for example, it's like, we should add to this. No, publish it. You will always know more and be better than your readers when talking about your own stuff, right? So if it creates value for the reader, publish it. Get it out there, establishing the pulse and that internal muscle of we are publishing content consistently. That's the important thing at the beginning. And so what you should look out for with your CMS is really a few things. So I always recommend static site generators and a headless CMS. And so we recommend Next.js and Netlify for that. But really the important thing here is that it allows for implementation of best practices like you can adhere to the core web vitals. I'm going to talk about that in a second. You can implement meta tags. And especially in the age of AI, it's important that you are able to implement schema markup, right? Schema markup can tell, like, on the page very specifically, this section is an FAQ section. The whole article is a tech article. And here's the information about the author, right? And so you want to make sure you're able to work that into every article that you publish. And so if there's some CMSs that don't allow for that, or that are not customizable long term, but even short and midterm, that's a huge detriment to your content marketing. And so I'm going to give you an example here regarding the core web vitals, right? So let's say you're in the fortunate position, you have a lot of budget, and your marketing team has HubSpot, and you're thinking like, hey, HubSpot has this feature where I can publish landing pages and also blogs. Like my whole blog can run on HubSpot, basically. That sounds great because you're also doing your lead collection potentially in HubSpot, right? It's your CRM. But beware, because HubSpot, if you build landing pages and blog posts with HubSpot, HubSpot has a lot of default JavaScript that injects into every page that you build with it. And so if you, for example, have a blog post and before that whole page is loaded, the server needs to download, or the reader needs to download 1 megabyte of JavaScript that's completely unnecessary from the server, that's very bad because that heavily impacts page load performance, right? The page takes longer to load. And the longer a page takes to load, the worse you rank for your core web vitals. And the core web vitals are really important. That's like Google's way to basically programmatically define this is a page with a good user experience. And so think about it like that, right? Search engines, I'm just going to say Google, but search engines in general, they have two main responsibilities. So if the searcher types something into the search field and they're searching for something, the results that they're being shown need to be highly relevant to what they searched for. So that's keyword relevancy, right? And the other thing is, if the searcher then clicks on a result that the search engine provides to the searcher, that result needs to load fast and not have any weird surprises on the page, right? Because if I search for something and I click on a link that Google provided me, and then the page takes 8 seconds to load, I'm mad and I'm annoyed. But I'm not mad at the company from the blog. I'm mad at Google. Why did Google show me this? So they are heavily incentivized to allow for a really, really good search experience and user experience for the searchers. So they want your page to load fast. They don't want to have any, like your page with any kind of dark design patterns, like jumping layouts and stuff like that, right? So our content management system needs to make sure that we can publish with these best practices in mind. And again, if we cannot change that 1 megabyte of JavaScript is being injected for every page load, then this is not good. This is not a good solution for us. So again, we recommend Next.js and Netlify, but you can check out jamstack.org and see a lot of the different solutions that are out there. And then something we get asked a lot as well is, hey, should I publish my blog on a subdirectory on the subdomain? So should it be blah, blah, blah /blog or blog.blah.blah.com, for example? And I always recommend that the subdirectory, so /blog or /learn or whatever. But now in the age of AI, it's even more important to have it in a subdirectory because domain authority and topical authority heavily influence how the AI systems evaluate the credibility of your domain and your content. And so if you keep content that's around the same topical areas and technical content on your domain is all basically about the same kind of topics, over time, you build up these authority signals that help AI engines and help with AI citations, but also help traditional SEO, like help with traditional SEO. So really, you want to have this on a subdirectory. And again, just stressing that again, it's really important that you can publish, analyze, and report content performance consistently with not a lot of friction without having to need anybody else, like from another team, basically, to help you. So you might say, hey, what if that all sounds great, but I already have a setup. Like we have been publishing blog posts. Do I really need to migrate? And so here I say this depends. right? So if you've only been publishing on third-party platforms like, I don't know, Dev.to or Medium.com, I say yes. You want to build up your own domain. Get the whole setup on your own domain because you want to build up your own domain. You want to get the top of your authority for your domain, right? But what you can do is you can publish teaser articles on Dev.to or on Medium or on Hackanoon, Hashnode, DZone, all these kinds of things that allow you to do content syndication, right? But it's really important to then point the canonical URL to the original article on your domain. I don't want to get too overly technical, but this basically is a signal to search engines that says, hey, I'm not trying to steal and duplicate content here. I'm pointing you to the original and I'm just republishing here. And yeah, as mentioned, if you have a setup on your own domain, but it doesn't allow you to adhere to those best practices that I just talked about, then I really highly recommend making the switch because long-term, it's going to be detrimental. And the longer you run with a suboptimal setup, the harder, there's just inertia to really switch, right? Okay. Now that we can publish content consistently with best practices in mind, let's talk about analytics. So really what we're measuring here is, how many people are coming to our website and basically our blog, right? And website in general, but mainly we focus on the blog here. How much time are you spending on it, right? Is what we are publishing actually, are they consuming it, or did they click through to something, they expected something else, and after 3 seconds they leave, right? And then we want to measure citations in AI overviews. And the reason we do this is really we just want to get insights and understand our audience better, right? And obviously, if it grows, if your VC back, then your traffic grows. It's not detrimental, right, for raising the next round. But in terms of our content marketing engine, why we want to analyze these things is because we want to understand our audience better. What appeals to them? What drives traffic? And are the things that we thought would do well, are they actually working out well? And are they driving business? Do they create the traffic that we then later turn into leads, and those leads later turn into revenue, right? And so I usually say here, keep it simple. Google Analytics has been around for a long time. There are other solutions if you don't want to use a Google product. By all means, there's lots of other solutions that you can use. But I usually recommend Google Analytics. You can implement it with the Google Tag Manager. I recommend that, but it's definitely not a must. It just gives you more flexibility, versioning system around that, etc. Right? And then I also usually recommend the Google Search Console for search impressions and seeing what kind of queries somebody was searching for that led to traffic to your pages. And so again, the traditional metrics are just how many unique users, active users it's called, in Google Analytics, the time on page and the search impressions. You might ask why unique users and not something like page views or sessions. So my personal preference is the unique users. And the reason for that is, one unique user is a person I can sell to and make money off of. But that one person could go to our blog 500 times in 1 month. And we might feel like, wow, this is great. There's so much potential for business here. No, it's still just one person, right? So I track, in Google Analytics, it's called active users. And then for AI era metrics, we definitely want to track the SERP placements in AI overviews. So how many AI citations do we get, and how often are we mentioned in Perplexity, ChatGPT, and stuff like that. And we also want to track how much traffic, referral traffic, are we getting from ChatGPT and Claude, etc. And there's a really nice and very simple way to do this in Google Analytics via setting up a new AI channel group that might sound difficult, but really it's like a 3-minute thing. There's a great tutorial on the Ahrefs blog for that. And in general, for measuring the stuff, I personally like Ahrefs, but you can also use SEMrush or other providers that can do the same. But specifically, if you want a tutorial on how to track how much traffic you're getting from AI channels, I think Robin in the chat will link the article, the tutorial to you. And in general, right, you might have seen Robin probably sent a bunch of stuff in the chat already. Keep an eye out on the chat, but don't be stressed out about it. You don't have to open anything because we're going to send you a recording of this session and everything that I've been talking about, all the resources that Robin is sharing. I'm going to send it to you in an email tomorrow. So, keep an eye out for the email tomorrow, and today focus on what I'm talking about here. But if something is really interesting to you right now, just check out the chat panel and click through and read through it after the session. Okay, so now that we have analytics in place and we can start measuring things, it's really appealing to start setting goals, right? And it's always great to set up goals, but be careful here, because especially at the beginning, it's really hard to set realistic goals, because there's like your performance is dependent on so many different factors, right? So let's say, your company has been around for 10 years, the domain has been around for 10 years, but you never had a blog and you never published anything, and now you start publishing. Well, there's a lot of trust in the domain already. You have a high domain rating. So if you start publishing blog posts, they will automatically do better than a new startup that just bought a domain and is starting to publish, because your domain has been, gaining in trust over 10 years. And so the new startup obviously doesn't have that benefit, right? And there's like, do you have an existing audience? How strong is your brand? Are you working in a huge market, in a huge industry? Do you have competitors that want to publish the same thing and they're doing really well, right? Do you have a good promotional and distribution process? I actually had a webinar last month about promotion and distribution, and there's a video on our YouTube channel about that webinar if you want to check it out. And we're also going to release a guide on that has specific examples that you just literally can copy paste of how to distribute and promote your content on LinkedIn and Twitter and stuff like that. But yeah, if you have good promotional processes, of course you get more traffic than not promoting at all, right? I always say, just because the content is published doesn't mean we're done. Once it's published, now we need to start distributing and promoting the stuff, right? But in any case, I digress. The important message here is, once you start doing this, once you say, hey, I'm committing with my team, we're going to start publishing content consistently, stick with it. That's really important, right? Don't give up immediately. It takes about 6 months of consistent output to see results. And AI overview citations, that can actually go quite quick, but I still would say, give it 2 to 3 months. And really, for the thing that we're mainly going for here, the thing that will drive business revenue, I would give it 6 months. What is that thing? That thing is your consistent traffic, your guaranteed traffic to your website. Guaranteed traffic means even if you stop publishing and don't do anything anymore, you will have guaranteed a base net of traffic that comes to your blog posts every month. And this is a very exciting time when that first starts to happen. Because imagine, right, we have, I don't know, 100 clicks per day to our blog. That's about a little more than 3,000 clicks per month to our blog. And that's something we very much can work with, right? And so here's an example from one of our clients. And so you can see early on in February 2024, they published every now and then internally, right? This inspiration strikes kind of approach. And then we started helping them. And then you can see from April to August, really the trend is going up. And then what I've marked here is, okay, we had a day where we had 165 clicks on their blog on one day, right? And you can see, if you look at the blue line, those are the click-throughs, they hover around 120, 100 clicks per day. And that's beautiful, right? Imagine this growing even more over time, and just knowing, doesn't matter what we do, we will have 100 clicks per day on the blog, 3,000 clicks per month. And now, with that guaranteed base level of traffic, we can start working. We can turn the traffic into known names in our database to build a relationship with. And that's where we come into collecting leads in your database, right? What are we doing here, right? We want to measure how many leads, new leads we have in our database. And, leads can mean a lot of things, but let's just keep it simple. Let's say first name, last name, and a legit email address that we can reach out to. And really, as mentioned, it's about building a relationship with the human. So it's not about spamming people. It's providing value over time, earning trust over time. So when they are ready to look into a solution that you are offering, they'll pick you over your competitors, right? Because we have been engaging with them, we were respectful, we didn't spam them, and we built up a helpful relationship with them, and now they're willing to give us money for the product that we offer. That's how it's supposed to be, right? And so what I usually recommend here is, if you're just starting out and say, hey, we don't have budget, there's no excuse here. You can use MailChimp or Kit.com. There's super low budget. They have free plans even. But yeah, later on, I would suggest something like HubSpot. Once you have more contacts to manage, or you have the budget for it because you have proven over time that what you're working on works and brings business revenue, you get higher budget, and then you can get the nice stuff like HubSpot with nice marketing automations and stuff like that. Or, when you have the size of team to support that as well, right? Even though, as mentioned, we created 1,500 marketing leads per month at CodeJib, and the team was 3 people, and we ran with HubSpot. But yeah, the main thing here doesn't matter what you use. The main thing is we want to turn the traffic, the guaranteed traffic that we get every month, into known names in our database. And we do this by collecting their information via form submissions. So we want to be able to create forms to collect that information. And that can be just a simple newsletter form at the beginning. And then over time, as we get more and more content out, we can repurpose this content, turn it into helpful gated assets, and start doing that. At the beginning, it's totally fine if it's just a newsletter form. And now you might say, come on, these are developers. They don't download PDFs. They don't even see the forums because they have JavaScript blockers and ad blockers, and they won't give their real email address. Sure, true. There's definitely a subset of people that do that, but also keep in mind there are a lot of developers out there. The world is a big place, and I can tell you from my own experience with my company, but also with all of our clients that have implemented this, there's enough people that do provide the real email address that do download these assets. It's all about offering them something that's valuable and that is worth it to them to give their email address, because they know, wow, this is really good. And the newsletters that they're sending, they are really helpful too, and they're not spammy, and they're respecting me. But this is what we're trying to build here. And so really think about what kind of assets you can offer that will be helpful them. And don't do half-baked things where you feel like, maybe I can trick them into downloading. So this is the worst thing you can do, because then you lose the respect, and it's super hard to earn back that respect. So yeah, your content's primary goal should be building trust. And so again, generally with humans, but in this case, like with our audience, with our developer technical audience, don't treat them poorly, don't spam them, treat them fairly. Also keep in mind, right, the value to friction ratio. You might want to have a lot of information about a potential lead, like what's their company, what's the seniority, what's the job title, how many engineers work in their organization, all of the stuff. But really, if it's just like a subscription for a newsletter form, don't ask these things, right? It's like the things you're trading here are they're not in balance, right? Again, it's about building a relationship and providing value over time. So for the newsletter form, keep it super simple, like email address, first name, last name, maybe even just email address and first name, right? One thing that we get asked quite a bit of clients that implement this is, well, now that I'm starting collecting these leads and these newsletter subscribers, don't I have to also have a good, plan around publishing newsletters frequently? As simple as is, no. You don't have to do this. Just because you start collecting newsletter subscribers doesn't mean you have to send newsletters to your audience immediately, right? It's totally fine if you have 50 subscribers, or even if you have 1,000 subscribers, to not send a newsletter yet, right? There's the important thing is, once you start sending a newsletter, be consistent, keep disciplines, and create this pulse and expectation setting, and create value over time. So once you start sending a newsletter, make sure you can at least send it once a month, right? But even a monthly newsletter is quite a bit of work. So if you don't feel comfortable at the moment to start, sending a monthly newsletter, just don't send a newsletter. But once you start, keep at it, be consistent, be predictable for your audience, and provide value. Okay, quick sip of water here. Now let's talk about setting up retargeting ads and retargeting audiences. And this is really exciting to me because you can have a lot of fun here and have smart ways to help you build brand awareness, but also not be spammy and like obnoxious with it, basically. And what we're measuring here is basically we want to increase our retargeting audience size, which is coming from traffic and specific traffic segments. And what we're doing here is we're basically serving ad impressions to people that previously visited our blog. And the nice thing here is the impressions on retargeting ads are free. Only clicks cost money. And so again, you can have a lot of impact here with very little budget. I'm going to talk about a few examples in a second. What I want to tell you here, though, is keep in mind that these retargeting ads work via us implementing retargeting scripts at cookie traffic. So the more scripts you implement, the more bloated your page gets, more stuff to load, right? And remember my example with the 1 megabyte of HubSpot injected JavaScript? Well, these scripts, they need to be loaded, which means page load is going to slow down. Core web vitals are going down, which might impact our ranking. So be really strategic about which retargeting scripts to implement when. So for example, if you don't have a lot of budget, don't install, Google, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Meta and have them collect an audience all at the same time, because you won't run the ads on all of these platforms, right? If you don't have a lot of budget, let's say, I don't know, you have $15 per day, $10 per day. Well, maybe you want to start with Google Ads retargeting, so you only implement the script for Google, but not the other ones, because you want to make sure you're not increasing page load, like page load bloat. Basically, you don't want to have a longer page load speed, is what I'm saying. Also, I'm from Europe, so GDPR is a thing here. So keep privacy in mind. There's also CCPA in California, so you can have cookie consent solutions like CookieScript or IOBender. And Robin can also share a link in the chat with you about Google's official CMP partner program page. CMP is Content Mode Partners. So there's simple ways to implement these, like cookie banners. We all don't like them. I mean, maybe not we all, but a lot of people don't like them. But, you want to keep that in mind. And there's simple ways to do it. And so now I want to talk about something that's so much fun with retargeting audiences. Fun because you can be creative, but also because you can see great results with it. And so you want to be smart with building your audiences. So let's say, right, let's keep with this example. We're doing Google Ads, retargeting ads. So we're building out audiences in the back end of our Google Ads platform. And let's say you have a blog where you publish a bunch of different tech content. And some of it is Ruby, some of it is Python, some of it is Kubernetes. What we can do is, if we just, in the URL of these blog posts, in the slug, for example, have at the end -Python or -Ruby, what we can do is we can create retargeting audiences based on what's in the URL of the pages that somebody visits. And so we can start collecting specifically only traffic to Python pages, only traffic to Ruby pages. And this becomes very powerful. I'm going to tell you how in a second. But basically, think about when you publish the blog post, what kind of dedicated audiences can I have? Right? Of course, you can always build all blog visitors or all website visits. But, don't forget exclude audiences. I'm going to talk about this in a second as well when I run through my example. But be creative and think about, hey, how can we provide the most value and be the most targeted with our audience so we can serve a thing that's actually helpful and valuable to them and not a generic thing, right? And generally, what I would say, earlier I said, right, don't implement all of the scripts at the beginning if you don't have a lot of budget and only run one. What I would say, though, is once you decide you want to run retargeting ads, start implementing that script before you start setting up your banners and before you start, like even a month or two before, because retargeting ads, they have a minimum of traffic that needs to be captured in an audience. If it's only like, I don't know, 17 people, then you cannot send those retargeting impressions. So you have to have a baseline of minimum traffic that you have achieved. So, while we start building our blog and we are starting to publish consistently, also implement the retargeting script. So we start collecting in our retargeting audiences. And then when we're ready to start serving the ads, we have a ready-made audience, basically. And there's two really nice things you can do with retargeting audiences. I'm going to walk through the examples for both of them. So they're great for brand awareness. And so let's say you have published a blog post and it's a great piece, and it got picked up on Hacker News or on Reddit, right? And so you have one day, and that is one day, 10,000 unique visitors came to your blog post. Amazing. We think like, oh my God, this is so great. But really, what might have happened on the other end is somebody went to Hacker News, saw an interesting article, read through the article. It was great, valuable, and helpful for them. And then they X'd out. They didn't even check out who was this article by, what's the company. They didn't see a logo, nothing, right? They were just on the page, got value, and then left. And you see in your analytics, hey, 10,000 unique people were here. But really, you're not getting a lot from that because they might not even have seen who that article is by, right? And so what you can do there is, I recommend having in your retargeting ads just a banner, a graphic where there's your logo, and a short tagline of what the business, the product offers, right? So for example, for me, at my old company, CodeShip, this would have been the CodeShip logo, and below it, continuous integration and delivery in the cloud. And so now you can run this for quite a while. I mean, again, don't be spammy. Google Ads allows a retargeting window of 540 days. But really, do we think that somebody in 1.5 years still wants to see our banner? Of course not, right? So again, be nice. Don't necessarily do that. But at the beginning, we might want to do 90 days, 60 days. Later on, when you're more established, do like a month or so, right? But so people came from Hacker News, 10,000 people were on the page. And now these 10,000 people for a month or 3 months, when they browse through the web, will see your logo and the tagline below it. And the nice thing here is the impressions are free. They see your logo and they see what you do, and you don't pay a single cent for it. Only when they click on it do you have to pay. And if they click on it, that's already a good signal, right? Because then they're checking out your website. So yeah, that's one really cheap and easy way to get a lot of impressions to build brand awareness and don't have to pay a lot. And the other thing, as mentioned, is you want to capture leads from previous blog visitors. So let's say you have these like gated assets. You have a PDF. Let's stick with the Python example, right? You have a Python ebook, and you have a lot of blog posts about Python. And so anybody that visits the page that includes the word Python in the URL, this specific audience gets a banner that promotes the Python ebook. Whereas anybody that visits a page with the word Ruby in the URL, why would they get the Python ebook? It's not relevant to them. They should get the Ruby ebook, right? And so over time, you will build out more and more assets so you can plug them into the right blog posts and into the right retargeting audiences to increase your conversion rates for what you're offering there, right? And that decreases the cost per lead, et cetera, right? That's all efficiency, will help us get more budget, etc. One thing that I also want to stress here is you can have all of these audiences, they're include audiences, but you can also set up exclude audiences. So for example, let's stick with the Python ebook again. Once somebody clicks on the banner, they come to a landing page where they see what's in the ebook. There's a form. When they submit the form, redirect them to a thank you page that just says, thanks for your interest in our Python ebook, whatever, right? The important thing is in the URL, it says thank you. And we can create a retargeting audience that captures traffic from everybody that has visited a thank you page, because then we know we had a conversion event here. And so we only want to serve ads to people that have not yet been on the thank you page, because if they have been on the thank you page, they already did what we wanted them to do. So why would we still show them ads? Why would we be annoying? We have their, we have their information, their email address, their name. So now we can start meaningfully reach out to them and be valuable to them over time. They shouldn't see our ads anymore unless it's a completely new asset that we think they might be interested in, right? Then sure. But then they will not be in that thank you audience because that's the Python thank you audience and not the Ruby thank you audience, right? So yeah, be creative about your exclude audiences is what I'm saying. And so here you can see an extremely basic setup. You can obviously become much more granular, as mentioned, Python, Ruby, all of these kinds of things. It's a lot of fun. But here you basically say, see, we capture all visitors, we capture blog visitors, and then we capture people that downloaded an ebook in the past. So that's the thank you page, right? That's the exclude audience. Okay. Looking at time here, let's jump to the last topic here, which is content calendars. And as mentioned, you might think, oh, that's overly basic. No, I'm a very, very big proponent and big fan of content calendars because this is all about, what we're doing here is all about predictability, being able to forecast, act, not react, having a healthy backlog of content that can be published and being able to report what we're doing to business leadership and prove that what we're doing drives revenue, right? And the content calendar is just such a simple tool that helps us do all of that and keep us accountable. So why would we not use one, right? And so I would say, like, again, don't go into the weeds. Keep things easy. Good enough is good enough. I personally like Trello as a content calendar with the calendar power, but also you can use Airtable, Asana, spreadsheets, Google Calendar if you want. On our resources page on our website, we have a lot of actual templates that you can just download and they're ready to go. So if you want to have like a content calendar template for Trello, head up to the resources page, or I also think I see Robin has just posted something, so maybe he sent the link to that in the chat. Feel free to download them. But really, what this should help you with and what this does is it's a simple way to report to the business what you're doing, what you have been doing. It gives us insights into what we have been doing, and then we can start analyze what's working, what's not working. And really, it's about creating this predictability and accountability. So like, hey, what's happening next week? Okay, next week we have these 4 things going out, right? And I want to go back to our example of earlier, where we say we have 100 people coming to our blog every day, which means about 3,000 people coming in per month. When I say predictability and being able to forecast traffic and even leads, what I mean is this, right? So let's say we have our baseline, our guaranteed traffic, and that's like 3,000 clicks to our blog. And we also have one gated asset, our Python ebook, right? And we just put that Python ebook onto every blog post that we publish. And we see, okay, per month, we're collecting around 30 leads from that Python ebook, right? So we get 30 downloads, 30 form submissions of new people per month, right? And of course, it's not linear, but what we can do is some simple math and say, hey, if we increase our traffic to 6,000 people per month, probably we'll get around 60 leads out of that, right? Again, we don't have to be super exact here. It just helps us to start to develop a feel and give a prediction to the business leadership, right? And there's so many different screws we can turn and we can tweak to even improve these results, right? So again, let's say we get 6,000 people to the blog, but also we have the Python ebook and the Ruby ebook. So obviously on the Ruby articles, the Ruby ebook will have a better conversion rate than the Python ebook. So suddenly we're starting to get more leads out of that, right? And then we can go even further because we're still here just in the marketing funnel, right? We can spin this further ahead, go into the sales funnel and go to, closed won deals. So let's say, right, this amount of traffic leads to this amount of leads. This amount of leads leads to this amount of marketing qualified leads. And we need, 50 marketing qualified leads to create 10 sales qualified leads. And out of 10 sales qualified leads, 2 are an opportunity. And out of 2 opportunities, we close 1 deal on average with that amount of revenue. And suddenly you can reverse engineer. If we want to have 1 closed deal with that average amount of revenue, we need 2 opportunities, we need 10 SQLs, we need that many MQLs, we need that many leads, we need that many people visit our blog. And that's where real magic starts to happen, because suddenly this is not like, it's like you can tell business leadership, okay, if we can double our content production, we were going to get from 3,000 to 6,000 people per month on the blog, which should give us about a 30, like in absolute numbers, 30 more leads. And out of those 30 more leads, we will generate 10 more SQLs. And we know these 10 SQLs turn into one closed deal. So give us the budget and we get one more closed deal per month, right? That's the beauty of all of this. And so at the beginning, this all sounds great, but how should you do this at the beginning, right? At the beginning, reverse engineer and use placeholders. Estimate what you can publish every month. So let's say, right, hey, the maximum we can do is 2 articles per month. So that means 6 articles in a quarter. Okay, start building out your content buffer. Just when an article is ready to publish, don't publish it immediately. Have 6 articles ready, and once all 6 articles are ready, start publishing 2 per month. And so now you basically bought yourself 3 months of time to create those next 6 articles. And if you want to increase that cadence, either you have to get it internally, right? Maybe more developers are interested in producing content that you tell them is strategically relevant, or you can reach out to Draft.dev and reproduce that kind of content for you, obviously, right? But at the beginning, I would say at least you want to have 2 articles per month to show this pulse to your readers and to search engines and AI engines. Anything below that, don't start, build up what you can do. And so again, build out the buffer that buys you time and lets you produce the next thing. So in our example, 3 months for 6 articles. Again, stick to it. Put placeholders in your content calendar. Even if you don't know what to produce, every 2 weeks, have a placeholder in there. So it makes you feel accountable for it, right? And then it's really important to stay accountable, build that pulse, and build that discipline and that muscle in your marketing team. And so, again, the content calendar just helps you with all of that, right? You know when an article is being published in the future. You know what the final URL will be. You know that you will put the Python ebook in there. You can even set up social media promotion for all of this and schedule everything ahead, your newsletters, because you know when this will happen and it's ready, right? It's ready. It's just not published yet. And then stick to a plan instead of this inspiration strikes. This might be nice surprises when our developers come to us and say, hey, I have something here. Great. Awesome. But really, build out your content buffer. Don't be reliant on your internal team to quickly come up with something. Have the processes in place, have the discipline, and be consistent. And then, of course, also consider setting up, like, if you use, for example, Trello with the content calendar, you can set up automation. So if, say, every 3 months once an article is published, every 3 months you get a reminder to check if this needs a content refresh. But especially in the age of AI overviews, this is really important. That's why we recently started offering a dedicated service at Draft.dev, which just technically content refreshes. Because what we've seen is, I don't know, somebody searches for something, how to do XYZ with your product on ChatGPT, and ChatGPT gives them an output that's derived from blog content from 2 years ago, and it's outdated packages and it doesn't work, right? And so what we offer is basically that some of our developers are going over your article and see if there are outdated packages, if there is on a technical level something that needs to be replaced, right? We've seen like lots of appetite for that recently because people realize, whoops, what ChatGPT is putting out is actually content from like 2-3 years ago and we haven't updated it. Okay, wrapping up here in short, try to figure out your current capacity, reverse engineer how much you can produce, and then stick to it. And then over time, try to increase the cadence, right? So this is how this can look like. On the left side, you have the very beginning, like you have your placeholders, you don't even know what you publish at. On the right side, you have something, multiple different authors, 3 to 4 articles per week. This is an example of the CodeTrip content calendar way back when, right? So again, this was the team of 3 people and then a bunch of external authors, which is what, for example, Draft.dev offers, right? And so good content strategy takes time. And I haven't even talked about, it's like building out content for different funnel stages and intent stages, and having content that you can internally link to one funnel stage further down to push people towards your product, etc. That's actually something I talked about in a different webinar that's on our YouTube channel as well. Orchestrating content, it was called. So there's a dedicated video on that on our YouTube channel if you want to check that out. But yeah, this is what I talked about today, is like how to get the basics, the prerequisites set up that you're predictable, can measure things, and can hold yourself and your team accountable. But there's so much more we can do in a structured way. So it's like building a content engine is a lot of fun, especially when you can see the results and prove them to business leadership. And you see the direct evidence that what you did and what you published led to business revenue. That's just really nice, right? Okay, and so with that, I am gonna open up the Q&A. Before I do that, though, so if you have any questions, feel free to post them now. I see something already in there. Before I do it, though, I just want to tell you, I hope this presentation helped you today. If you have a lot of internal subject matter experts that can write all of this content for you, use them if they're willing to do that. That's really a privileged situation. If you don't have that, consider booking a call with us to learn more about what Draft.dev can do for you. We have over 300 developers with more than 10 years, each of them in developer experiences, and we exclusively serve technical audiences. So we are really specialized on that. You can see on the left side the things that we offer and can do for you. But yeah, not to become overly promotional here. Just wanted to tell you on September 24th, we have another session, and it's about measuring DevRel impact, and it's with leaders from DigitalOcean and SingleStore. So if you want to sign up for that, check out Draft.dev/webinars, or there's something coming up in our newsletter soon. So Draft.dev/newsletter. You can subscribe to our newsletter there, and then you'll get the registration link for that if you want. But yeah, with that, let's jump into the Q&A. And so let me see. I have one question here so far, so I'm gonna choose that one. And if you have something else, feel free to post something now. So the question here is, can you talk a little bit more about the core web vitals? So that was about the content management systems and being able to have something that allows you to publish in a way that makes sure you adhere to those core web vitals. So you can check out the core web vitals, just Google core web vitals, basically. And there's different things, like there's LCP, largest contentful paint, and there's a lot of other things. And a tool you can use there that's really good is pagespeed.web.dev. And there you can just post, you can submit your URL and give you a report. How is your website, when it's being loaded, judged by search engines in terms of the core web vitals, right? So you can see, hey, the largest contentful paint is this, so you're in the red here, and blah, blah, blah is this, you're in the green here, and it gives you an overall score. And really, you always want to be in the green for all of the scores, because then it means, in terms of search engines, your page is being perceived as a really good page with a good usability. And so when it comes to that, there's things like, as mentioned, I think the big kickers here are when there's a lot of scripts being loaded that don't need to be loaded. One example that I've seen is that there are, somebody published something via HubSpot, and every blog post has the JavaScript injected for form submissions. But there might be blog posts that don't have a form. And so, of course, if they don't have a form, you don't need to inject the JavaScript that enables the form functionality. But HubSpot doesn't allow you to, per page, remove that script. It just gets loaded globally on every page. And so that's what I mean with, you want to have a CMS that allows you to customize where, on which pages you inject these things, right? And I talked a little bit about the Google Tag Manager. There's things you can do with Google Tag Manager that help with that. But really, it's all about being smart with what is actually required on this page. So I don't know, do you need a retargeting snippet on your privacy policy page? I don't know, right? Just as a random example, but stuff like that, think about it, right? And another thing that we see a lot is that the images that are being used for blog posts are served in too high a dimension, and they are just, heavy images. They are PNGs when they don't need to be PNGs. There's a standard called .webp, and so .webp pictures are very small and still, have very good compression. Don't create artifacts, and they're very small. And if you have a good CMS, what it does for you is it takes your initial image, and that's the image size. That's the maximum size, basically. And then it creates different versions of your image for different viewports. So if somebody is on a mobile phone, they might need a smaller resolution. So then they will load a different image that's smaller in terms of resolution and file size, because the browser realizes, hey, I'm watching this, I'm looking at this from a smaller resolution viewport. And so stuff like this is really helpful, because, again, why would you load a huge picture on a small screen, or why would you load a huge picture of 3 megabytes at all? Probably it's just too big in terms of dimensions, right? Cool. Another question that I'm seeing here, that's the last one at the moment, so I'm just gonna respond to that, is by Matthew. Matthew asks, if I have forms to capture leads, what are some good questions for the forms? And also, how many questions should I have? Yeah, that's a good question, right? I talked about this in terms of the value to friction thing. So again, if you just have a newsletter, don't ask 7 things, just ask for email and first name and maybe last name, right? And I talk about this more in my webinar recording that you can find on YouTube for orchestrating technical content, because I talk a lot about the content funnel in there. And you have, the top of the funnel, the middle funnel, and the bottom of the funnel. And the bottom of the funnel attracts fewer people, but they are much more interested in your actual solution and maybe even your specific product. And so a classic example here would be a newsletter form should not ask a lot of questions at all. If you have like the Python ebook that I gave as an example, hey, you can ask, hey, what's your company? And maybe you can ask an additional question, like stuff that happens a lot with tech companies is like, how many engineers work in your company, right? Because if it's like one engineer, probably this lead should not be handed over to a sales team, because a sales rep costs money. And if the sales rep talks with somebody from a company that only has one engineer, probably that company doesn't have enough money to buy an enterprise deal that's worth being sold by a sales rep. So yeah, on a Python ebook, you might ask this, like, what's your company? Because then you can research them, right? You can check out their LinkedIn, what does this company do, etc. And you might ask how many engineers work in your company. And then if it's like a really deep down in the funnel webinar, how to do XYZ with your product, it's totally fair to ask even more questions, right? So it's like, hey, are you interested in trying our product? Would you like to see a demo? Yes, no. Phone number optional, stuff like this, right? You can ask much more questions because they're already so much closer to your actual product. Their intent to try your product is so much higher than somebody that looks at a newsletter subscription form, right? They're so far removed from the product, and not even the product, just from purchasing your product solution. Where somebody that wants to watch a webinar that says how to solve my problem with your product, they are much more willing to give that information, right? So yeah, the TLDR here is keep the value to friction ratio in mind. And when in doubt, don't ask too much. Be nice, build the trust over time, and eventually you will learn more and more about your audience. Yeah, those were all the questions from the Q&A. If you have any more questions come up, I'm always happy to answer them after the fact. Feel free to send me an email, Manuel@Draft.dev. And also, again, we're going to send a recording and all of the material that Robin shared in the chat to you tomorrow. And yeah, with that, if you want, join us on September 24th, or if you want to learn more about our services, book a call with us, go visit our website, Draft.dev, and we'd love to help you. And with that, have a nice day and see you soon.